I don't remember the exact moment she said it. All I know is the words have been running laps inside my head ever since. You always want more. She didn't say it as an insult. Not quite as a compliment either. More like she was holding up a mirror, amused at what she saw in me. And I, without thinking, had answered, "And you love that about me." It wasn't flirting, not in the way people expect. It was something heavier, quieter. The kind of exchange that hangs in the air long after the words dissolve. I first met her at the bookstore where I worked part-time. Not the big glossy kind, but a small independent shop that smelled of paper and old coffee. I was shelving a box of used novels when she walked in, sunlight catching the streaks of silver in her dark hair. She moved with a kind of practiced ease, like she belonged wherever she went. She wore a linen jacket, sleeves slightly rolled, a fountain pen tucked into the pocket. I noticed her hands first, steady, precise, as she traced the spine of a book without pulling it out, as if she already knew what was inside. "Do you have the new reprint of Letters to a Young Poet?" Her voice carried warmth, but also something edged, like she expected to be disappointed. "We sold out last week," I said, "but I can order a copy." That's when she looked at me, really looked. Not just the quick flick of eye contact people use, but something slower, measured, as though she was trying to place me. My chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. "Order it then," she said, but softer this time. "I'll come back." She became a regular after that. Always in the late afternoon, always lingering longer than she needed to. She asked about books, about recommendations, though sometimes I felt she already knew the answers. One day, as I was restocking, she leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You always want more," she said suddenly, not about the books but about me. About the way I pushed suggestions, about how I talked too quickly when she asked for details. Her smile was faint, but it wasn't unkind. More like she had spotted something I didn't know I was showing. I laughed, awkwardly. "And you love that about me." There it was, the pause. She tilted her head, lips pressed together, neither agreeing nor denying. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was alive. That evening, as the shop emptied, she stayed behind a moment longer. She straightened a pile of magazines, like she couldn't quite bring herself to leave. Then she glanced at me with something unreadable in her eyes. Something that made the fluorescent lights feel too bright, the air too thin. "You should learn when enough is enough," she said, adjusting her jacket. "But maybe that's not in your nature." I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded. She gave a small, knowing smile and left. After I locked up, I sat alone behind the counter, the smell of paper and dust heavy around me. I replayed every word, every glance, every pause. I shouldn't have cared so much. She was older, confident, with an entire life I could only guess at. But there was something in the way she spoke, how she noticed things about me no one else did. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The next week, she came in just as I was unpacking a shipment of hardcovers. Her jacket was different this time, darker, fitted, like she dressed for a meeting that ran late. She carried herself with the same ease, but her face looked tired. Not worn down exactly, more like she had been carrying a weight all day and was only now letting it settle. "Your book came in," I told her, sliding the copy across the counter. For a moment her eyes softened. She took the book, fingers brushing the cover like it meant more to her than she wanted me to notice. "Thank you," she said, and then, quieter, "I didn't think it would matter so much to have it in my hands again." Again. That word caught me. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the look in her eyes warned me not to. It was the same look someone wears when they're halfway between keeping a secret and spilling it, and all it takes is the wrong question to push them too far. Instead, I busied myself with stacking a pile of returns. But I kept sneaking glances at how she loosened her scarf like the air was finally too heavy, at the way she pressed her lips together before exhaling slowly. She wasn't just here for the book. She was here to be unseen, and somehow I was the one seeing her anyway. Rilke, she said, lifting the book slightly. He was someone I used to read when things were uncertain. It's strange, isn't it, how the same words mean different things when you're older? Her voice faltered, the confidence thinning for the first time since I'd met her. And I should have let it go, should have respected the line she drew by speaking only in fragments. But something in me leaned forward, wanting more. Uncertain how? The words slipped out before I could stop them. She looked at me then, really looked. The kind of look that makes your throat dry because you know you've crossed into something you can't undo. Life doesn't get easier, she said finally. It just gets quieter. But that quiet can be worse sometimes. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, though my chest felt tight. As she paid for the book, her hand trembled slightly when she passed me the card. She caught me noticing, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Her lips twitched, as though she was about to make a joke to cover it, but nothing came out. Can you? She started, then paused. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. Would you mind helping me carry this stack to my car? She gestured to a pile of books she'd chosen while I wasn't looking. Of course I agreed. Outside, the evening air was cooler, brushing against my skin as I followed her. At her car, I set the box in the trunk and turned to leave, but she stopped me with a touch on my arm. Light, brief, but unmistakable. Stay a minute, she said. I don't feel like driving off just yet. Her voice wasn't casual, and my answer hovered on my tongue. Something I shouldn't say, but almost did. She leaned against the side of her car, arms loosely folded, the streetlight overhead painting shadows along her face. The city sounds were distant here, just the hum of traffic blocks away and the occasional hiss of a passing bus. You don't have to stay, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. I know, she answered. That's why I asked. The honesty of it caught me off guard. I shoved my hands in my pockets, trying to steady myself. I wasn't supposed to linger with her like this, not outside the safety of the shop. Out here it felt exposed, too real. She tapped her finger against the book resting on the trunk, her eyes following the motion instead of me. When I was younger, I thought books held the answers. Now they're more like mirrors. Some days, I don't like what I see. It felt like a confession, one she hadn't planned to give. Her voice carried a weight that pressed into me, something rawer than her usual poise. Without thinking, I stepped closer, just enough that the air between us shifted. Maybe it's not about liking the reflection, I said quietly. Maybe it's about not looking away. Her gaze lifted to mine, and for a moment it was there, the pull, the danger of it. She reached for the edge of the trunk, but her hand grazed my wrist instead. Just a flicker of contact, but enough to make my pulse stumble. I should have moved back. Instead, I stayed. Her lips parted, as if she was about to say something. Then her phone buzzed inside her jacket pocket. The sound jolted both of us. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and sighed. Work, she muttered, silencing the call without answering. The decision looked deliberate, like shutting a door she wasn't ready to open. Should you? I started. No, the word came too fast. Clipped. She softened a second later. No, not tonight. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pressed in, thicker than before. I leaned back slightly, forcing a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. This is... I tried to find the word. Dangerous? Wrong? I couldn't say any of them. Complicated. Her laugh was soft but hollow. You think you're the first to tell me that? It wasn't the answer I expected, and it landed heavier than I wanted it to. Still, I couldn't walk away. I wanted to. Every sensible part of me said leave now, before I said something reckless. Instead, I asked, then why ask me to stay? She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. Because you listen, she said simply. And right now I need that. Her hand lingered near mine on the trunk, not touching, but close enough that all it would take was the smallest movement to erase the distance. And standing there, the night wrapped around us, I realized I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop myself anymore. The bookstore had closed an hour ago, but she was still there. I'd let her linger, pretending I needed more time to balance the register, though really I was waiting for her to leave first. She didn't. She sat at the counter, flipping through a poetry anthology, her fingers slow against the pages like she was stalling for me too. "You're quiet tonight," I said finally, stacking receipts I didn't need to stack. "Am I?" she asked without looking up. "You usually have more to say." That made her glance at me. Her eyes were tired but sharp, like they'd cut right through the half-formed excuse I'd tried to build. "Maybe I'm trying not to," she said. The room seemed to shrink. The hum of the old ceiling fan filled the silence between us, too loud for how still everything felt. I set the papers down. "Trying not to what?" She closed the book carefully, almost reverently, before resting both hands on it. "Not to tell you things I shouldn't." My throat tightened. "Like what?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "You don't want to know. But I did. God, I did." I leaned forward, elbows on the counter. "You think I haven't already guessed?" Her eyes flickered, then steadied. "You're too young to guess right." The words landed like a slap, but not because they hurt, because they were true. And yet I couldn't back down. "You keep saying that," I said quietly, "and you keep coming back." For the first time, she looked rattled. She shifted in her chair, fingers tightening against the book. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't turn this into something it isn't." "Then what is it?" My voice cracked, softer than I meant it to be, because it feels like I stopped myself. The air between us was too fragile. One wrong word and it would all shatter. Her hand lifted, just slightly, like she wanted to stop me. But instead of speaking, she reached across the counter and touched my wrist. The contact was light, almost nothing, but it sent a rush through me. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Her eyes searched mine, steady, almost defiant. "You don't understand the risk." "Then explain it," I whispered. For a heartbeat I thought she might. Her mouth opened, then closed again, her jaw tightening. She looked like she was fighting herself, torn between confession and retreat. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded, thrumming like a held breath. Finally, she said, "If I tell you, I don't get to take it back." Her words hung there, heavy, dangerous. She still hadn't let go of my wrist. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't sure which scared me more, that she'd say it or that she wouldn't. Her hand was still on my wrist when the door to the shop creaked open. I nearly jumped back, but she was faster, pulling her hand away, sliding the poetry book across the counter, as if we'd been talking about nothing but authors and titles. A man stepped inside, older than me but younger than her. He had the same eyes, though dark, steady, carrying the same sharpness I'd come to recognize in her. "There you are," he said, dropping his keys into his pocket. "I thought you'd gone home already." She didn't move. "I was just leaving." The way she said it, calm but clipped, made my stomach knot. He looked at me, sizing me up the way people do when they walk into a room and instantly sense the air has shifted. "You work here?" "Yeah," I managed. My throat was dry. His eyes flicked between us, a beat too long. "Right?" He turned back to her. "Mom, the car's running." "Mom." The word detonated in my head. I looked at her, really looked, and suddenly the details I'd been avoiding lined up. The fine lines around her eyes weren't just from smiling. The way she carried herself, that steady poise, came from years I hadn't lived. And this man, her son, stood here like a reminder of everything I hadn't asked about. She didn't meet my gaze. Instead, she closed the book, slipped it under her arm, and brushed past me like nothing had happened. I'll be out in a minute, she told him. He hesitated, watching us both. Then he stepped outside, letting the door swing shut behind him. The silence that followed was worse than anything before. You didn't tell me, I said. My voice was quieter than I meant it to be, but it still carried the edge of accusation. She set the book down, fingers pressing against the cover as if grounding herself. Would it have made a difference? Yes, I said too quickly. Then softer, I don't know. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time, she looked almost small. I wasn't hiding him. I didn't want this to have a name before I understood what it was. This, the word caught in my throat. What is this, exactly? Her eyes lifted, steady, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. Something I shouldn't want. My chest tightened, caught between relief at her honesty and dread at what it meant. Through the glass door, I saw him waiting by the car, arms crossed, glancing toward the shop every few seconds. Time was running out. I wanted to say something that would anchor us, something that would stop her from slipping away into the night. But all that came out was, tell me it's nothing. If it's nothing, I'll walk away right now. Her lips parted, trembling just slightly. But she didn't say it. And in her silence, I heard everything she couldn't bring herself to admit. The shop felt smaller than ever, like the walls had leaned closer just to hear us. Outside, her son waited, the steady presence I couldn't ignore. Inside, she stood across from me, her fingers pressing hard into the book like it was the only thing tethering her. I can't say it, she whispered, almost to herself. Then don't, I said, the words tumbling out before I could think. But don't pretend it's not there either. Her eyes flicked up, startled, searching mine for a way out. She didn't find one. You think this is simple? She asked, her voice shaking for the first time. No, I said, and I meant it. But simple doesn't mean real. This, whatever it is, it's the only thing that's made sense to me in a long time. The truth sat between us, trembling. She closed her eyes briefly, like she was bracing herself against a wave. When she opened them, they were wet, the shine of someone who rarely let herself be seen this way. I've spent years telling myself I don't get to want things. Not anymore. That's for other people, people who still have time to make mistakes. My chest tightened. Maybe that's why this is happening now. Because you finally stopped running from it. She let out a shaky laugh, almost bitter. Or maybe because you're too young to know better. Maybe, I admitted. But you're not too old to want something real. And I'm not too young to see it. The silence stretched again, heavy but not empty this time. She moved closer. Not all the way, just enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence. My pulse raced, but I didn't move, afraid that if I did, I'd break the fragile gravity pulling us together. Say it, I whispered. Say what you've been holding back. Her lips parted, trembling. For a moment, nothing came. Then, barely audible, she said, I don't want you to walk away. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. But it was enough. It was the first time she'd let herself be honest. Without shields, without distance. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath for weeks. Her hand lifted, hesitant, and for the first time she didn't pull back. Her fingers brushed my cheek, light but steady, like she was testing whether I was real. I leaned into the touch before I could stop myself. Through the glass, her son shifted, glancing toward the door. The reality of it pressed back in, reminding me we couldn't stay suspended here forever. I covered her hand with mine, grounding us both. Whatever happens next, you don't have to hide from me. Her eyes held mine, steady now, no longer wavering. And you don't get to make promises you can't keep. I'm not promising, I said softly. I'm choosing. The words settled, heavy and irreversible. For the first time, she didn't argue. She just stood there, her hands still on my face, both of us knowing we had crossed a line we couldn't uncross. She dropped her hand first. Not quickly, not like she regretted it, but carefully, like pulling away from something fragile you didn't want to break. I felt the absence immediately, the cool air on my cheek where her warmth had been. Outside, her son tapped the roof of the car, impatient. The reminder was sharp. This wasn't just her and me. There were pieces of her life I'd only glimpsed, whole histories she carried that I couldn't touch. "I should go," she said. Her voice was steady again, the polished calm she wore like armor, but I could still hear the fracture underneath. I nodded. "I know." Neither of us moved. The silence between us had shifted. It wasn't heavy anymore, just full, like all the unsaid things had finally found a place to rest. She picked up her book, holding it against her chest. "You'll keep working here?" "Yeah." My throat tightened. "You'll come back." Her smile was faint, but real. "I always come back to books." It wasn't an answer, not really, but it was enough. She turned toward the door, then stopped halfway, glancing over her shoulder. "You were right, about not looking away." And then she left, the bell above the shop door chiming softly as it closed behind her. The next day, the bookstore felt different. The shelves looked the same. The smell of dust and paper hung in the air, but something had shifted in me. I kept thinking about the way she had said, "I don't want you to walk away." Not as a plea, not as a demand, but as a truth she couldn't hide anymore. I didn't know what would come next. Whether she'd step back into her life as if nothing had happened, whether she'd walk through the shop door again with another book request, or whether she'd never return at all. But what mattered was that for one moment we had both stopped pretending. She wasn't just the confident woman with silver in her hair and a life too big for me to touch. I wasn't just the younger man shelving books, restless and unknowing. We'd seen each other, and sometimes that was enough. I replay her words in my head even now. "You always want more." She was right. I do. But wanting more didn't mean I wasn't grateful for what we'd already shared. That stolen, dangerous moment where neither of us looked away. Because sometimes wanting more is just another way of admitting you're alive. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to choose honesty, even if it doesn't fit the neat shape of a story.